The new emerging cannabis industry is filled with entrepreneurs who are coming up with one great idea after another. All of us trying to get a piece of that billion-dollar weed pie that is out there. Some focus on tracking software, some on the law, some on growing, and some find a unique solution to a problem. That's the story of Trella Technologies out of Bourne, Massachusetts. Aja Atwood is the CEO and co-founder, and she joins me next on In the Weeds with Jimmy Young. Don't look now, but it's a whole new world of weed out there. Pot is flower, it's Bruce Banner and Blue Dream. You've got bongs and dabs, resin and shatter, vaping and edibles, new terms, new strains, and new ways to use cannabis sativa, the plant. Some just made with CBD, and hemp has minimal THC. There's sativa and indica strains, and 100 chemicals, all legal in 10 states for adult use. There's a lot to get to know. Get used to it, folks, because it's legal in the Bay State, and it's not going away. Neither is In the Weeds with Jimmy Young next. Revolutionary Clinics is just one of 49 medical cannabis dispensaries in Massachusetts, but there's a reason why it's one of the most popular. It's their patient-first philosophy. All day long, they teach, they educate, they communicate about this complicated plant called cannabis sativa. That's true whether you visit their Cambridge location in Fresh Pond at 110 Fawcett Street or at 67 Broadway in Somerville. Revolutionary Clinics, where the patient comes first. Welcome to this edition of In the Weeds with Jimmy Young, a podcast that can be found on C-Suite Radio, clnsmedia.com, as well as the procannabismedia.com network, and, of course, all leading podcast distributors out there. That includes iTunes and Spotify and a whole bunch of other people. You get that. And we are also doing a live to tape recording, a video recording of this for the WeedTube, Pro Cannabis Media's new YouTube channel. Please check it out, subscribe, like, share, and all that neat stuff. And in fact, we expect you to subscribe so you don't have to look for it anymore. It just comes to you. It's a whole new world of technology out there, isn't it? It certainly is. And we welcome in a very special guest. Her name is Aja Atwood, and she is the CEO and co-founder of Trella Technologies from Bourne, Massachusetts. Aja, great to meet you.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
And I drove right through Bourne this past week.
Did you?
Of course I did, because I was on the Cape like the entire world was on the Cape at some point over the 4th of July, right?
Excellent. We were glad to have you. Did you stay on the Cape or did you go to
I
Martha's
stayed on the
Vineyard?
Cape and I waved bye.
All right.
And I said hello and goodbye. I stayed overnight, and no, I did not move on to Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket. Come on.
Just making sure.
No, but I think you think maybe I should be hanging out there. I can understand. Aja, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into what Trella Technologies is. Where did you grow up? How did you, tell me a little bit about yourself, your story, and, of course, Northeastern University, too.
Yeah. So I'm a Northeastern University graduate, mechanical engineering degree.
How does a woman get into engineering? Because, as you know,
Yeah.
that's not typical.
It is not typical. Usually it happens when you see someone that looks like you doing something different and you go, hey, I can do that too. There's a visual example that, stimulated that thought for me. And I was always good at math and science. I was the tinkerer in the house, single mother.
And where did you grow up?
South Philadelphia.
Oh, boy. Okay.
South Philadelphia. I was
the worst sports fans in America. You know that, right?
Yeah, that's right. We're violent.
Terribly violent.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. The Broad Street Bullies.
Yes. You read about them in the history books because you were not around when Dave Schultz was pummeling my big bad Bruins, okay?
No, I've heard stories.
Okay, good.
Stories. But no, I grew up in South Philly, but left Philadelphia and went to Northeastern University and kind of have been in the Boston area ever since.
Gotcha.
But yeah, decided that my math, my science, and the fact that I like to tinker would probably be a good thing for me to move into engineering. But quickly found that I wasn't the typical engineer. And in typical, I mean the Dilbert cartoon that you can, picture in your mind a bunch of engineers sitting in cubicles, doing their own little part of the machine, whatever they're working on. I had that experience at Raytheon for a few years and experienced that was not the type of engineer I wanted to be. I like being more active with people. Even though I'm an engineer, I had a little bit of people skills that I could develop. So I got into what's called risk engineering. and that's going around to different locations, commercial properties, manufacturing sites, power plants, utility companies, to figure out if there was a fire or a natural catastrophe of some sort, how bad would that be, and what can we do from an engineering perspective to alleviate it from happening in the first place. So that involved a lot of consulting, traveling, meeting different people, and that really helped to refine my, people-to-people, one-on-one skills, while still being an engineer. And then I decided that, hey, I think I really want to do my own thing and be an entrepreneur. So I had a couple of bats at that, and then Trella Technologies is bat number 3.
All right. Well, let's talk about Trella Technologies. Yeah. I've teased it a little bit in our opens and what have you. Tell us about how it started and why it's so important, really and truly, for the future of our world, to be honest, based on what I read about this.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome for you to pick up on. Yeah.
So I went to Tufts, by the way, so I'm not, just a pretty face. Sorry, I couldn't resist.
It's I love it. So it kind of came from my learning experience about cannabis as not just a recreational plant, in high school, college, use it recreationally, and never really understood the benefits of the plant until I started having some medical issues with my own. I was an athlete. During, even after college, played women's tackle football for 3 years.
Whoa. Wait a second. As soon as you said you were an athlete, I was going to say, I didn't want to, guess, but I would not have guessed tackle football.
Yeah. 50 pounds heavier, and probably about 10 years ago. I played only for 3 years, loved it, but it was busy. We all the women in the league had full-time jobs of some nature, but we traveled and we would play teams in other states.
The Pride? Is it the what's the name? What was the name of the team? There's a local. So there's a Massachusetts team.
Yeah, there's the
Ernie's involved with this. Somehow.
He used to be. That was the Boston Militia.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And now they are the Boston Renegades.
Okay. Oh, that's a ripoff of the soccer team. I just want you to know, because that's my game. All right, and they were around in the '80s.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
But
I'm sorry.
Owned by a great friend of mine, and a couple and another woman. So it went from Ernie to now all women ownership.
Nice.
So the Boston team is women owned. The league is run by a bunch of different teams throughout different states. And when I was playing, we were Massachusetts Mutiny. The Mutiny is what we were called.
Yep.
It was a great time. I was a running back, 50 pounds heavier, and just took a beating.
How in the world did you, come on, you're science, engineering, and tackle football.
Yeah. My boss wasn't happy.
No, I guess he was not. Did you come to work every day? I mean, that's just crazy.
I came to work with a cast on my hand and had to climb roof ladders with a cast for about 3 months. So that was a little bit. But yeah.
So you're an athlete. We understand the competitive nature of sports and some of the positive things that sports does teach us all.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing that when you start a company, you have to have a game plan, right?
Yep.
And then you implement that game plan. So take me through the beginnings of Trella Technologies a little bit, because I know there's a co-founder in there too.
Right. So the issue that I was having growing my own, so I was growing my own cannabis since I had my some physical issues. I had a medical card, grow my own cannabis. Yeah. But at that time, I was also managing engineers from Maine all the way down to D.C., so I was traveling a lot. And I could figure out how to automatically control the temperature, automatically control the humidity when I'm away. I could take care of the lights, have a mechanism that go on and off. That's settled. But the one thing I couldn't figure out while I was away was how to control how high the plant grew, make sure it didn't grow out of control, overtake my lights above.
Right.
So,
and it can be a fire hazard too if it's not done right. And we've already seen a lot of examples of idiots out there, trying to grow 180 plants in their basement.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Yeah, you do have to be smart about your growing.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a living thing, by the way.
Yep, exactly.
Even though it's a weed, it's a living thing. Right.
I agree 100%.
Yeah. Did you ever talk to your plants?
Always.
Oh, you do?
Yes.
I know a lot of people who do this.
Always. And they talk to me.
I'm
George
sure
Washington Carver said, the plants talk and I listen. And that was his gift. That's how he received it.
Among other gifts that he gave back to us, too, based on what I remember from my history at Tufts University.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I do tend to interrupt, by the way.
That's okay. That's okay. But I was saying, so this was an issue that I couldn't I couldn't find on the market. So I was transitioning out of another startup and looking for another idea, something else to do. And I wondered if if this hasn't been done before, is there a way that we could do it? So I approached my co-founder, Andres Chamorro III, and we call him Dre. Dre and I went to Northeastern University together. That's how we met. So I contacted Dre and said, hey, I wonder if this is something that we can figure out. And he loves new, innovative ideas.
He's a patent king.
He's a patent king, yeah. Very creative, and just an awesome brain inside of that head. So I figured, and we work well together. So I figured if there's a way that we can come up with something. So we started out with just brains. Well, first thing is we did is we took a pause and we said, is there a market for it? Because just because we think there's an idea here doesn't mean that there's actually a market for it.
Right.
And I ran into an angel investor who said you need to develop your pitch deck before you even start creating your first prototype.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So
tell us your vision first in pictures, and then we'll see if we want to write you a check to implement it and develop it.
Yeah. And I'm glad that he did that. He made us pause because what happened is I took a step back and looked at the overall indoor farming industry as a whole. And got into the vertical farming industry where people are actually stacking multiple levels of plants, one on top of another.
I've seen this. I know a friend of mine that I grew up with has a dispensary down in Bridgewater, Alternative Compassion Services, and they have a stacking
arrangement.
Yeah.
But the thing that I found with that stacking arrangement is you're limited by height. In those situations as well. So just as I'm limited by height in my basement where I grow my, several plants.
Yeah.
The vertical,
under
12 plants, yes. The vertical farming industry is also limited by height as well. And everything that I could see were short plants like, greens, lettuce, short cannabis strains.
Yeah.
I'm sure they can only grow a certain variety of strains. There's certain strains that they can't grow because they're just too vegetative and they would overtake their space.
Right.
So I said, hey, this is a solution not just for me in my basement, but also a solution for the vertical farming and indoor farming industry as a whole.
Yeah, and indoor farming is really first of all, never in a million years being, numb when it comes to science and technology, really and truly, I'll admit that, including plants. Okay, I have a black thumb. I think I have not. I've already killed a plant this season. I just want to know. I feel bad about it.
Okay,
but I feel bad. I went out and I got more plants, and they're doing just fine.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I water them every day, but I don't talk to them. I talk to myself. I don't need the plant to listen to me. Anyway, let's move on. Indoor farming is not just limited to cannabis. I mean,
Correct.
this is an industry. It's out there. I mean, the farming industry has had to reinvent itself a few times rather than just throwing seeds out onto the big field and growing it and selling their crop. I mean, it's science and technology now.
Yeah, I mean, agriculture was our very first industry. If you go way back to the first thing we had to figure out was how to feed ourselves, and we'll always have to figure that out. And the world is changing now, where we're running out of space. We don't have as much arable land, so that's land that's actually good and healthy to actually grow on. You may have land, but it doesn't mean you can actually grow on it.
Right.
And then some people don't have access to that land, so we're going to have to come up with ways that we can sustain ourselves in different environments.
Right. All right. So let's walk through a little bit. Now, I took the initiative, if you will, of looking at your video and putting something together that we call B-roll.
All right.
Which is basically your pitch deck, which is a video. We'll get into that investment thing in a second, but I really want you to kind of walk us through this machine that I saw on video that grows plants horizontally. I mean, it's kind of fascinating. So walk me through you had to make a prototype too. Am I?
Yeah, we've made, we're on our 5th version right now. We have version 5 that we're currently growing a plant in, and we have a Facebook feed. So if you go on Facebook or follow us on Instagram, you'll see our most recent posts that show the actual version 5 with a plant in it.
Yes. But it's not like a live stream of the plant growing, though, is it?
No, to be clear,
Okay.
it's yeah.
That's good.
Sorry.
Because I'm like, I really would worry about people who would actually be watching the plant grow. It's kind of like watching paint dry, right?
Yeah. No, I don't think there's enough interest for that. So
That's right. No, I hear you.
We'll do a Facebook Live. We do Facebook Lives every couple of weeks.
Oh,
and
good.
We have we just did our first one last week, so we're doing another one next week.
Okay.
And we have the actual unit in the background, so you can see it with the plant in it as well.
Cool. So it's how many plants? I saw this box, this rectangular box.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
So how many plants can you fit inside that rectangular box?
Got you. So it's one plant per unit.
Okay.
And the reason why we wanted to stick to one plant per unit is that there are plant count regulations in different states, either for residential or medicinal growers. Yeah. So the goal, one of the goals was to make the most out of one plant, so that you're under that regulation. It helps people that have that limitation to be able to increase their yield. And then the other thing is it reduces waste. The more plants that we're growing, it creates waste just to grow those plants, and then you also need a lot of mother plants to have the cuttings to actually supply all those other smaller plants. So it's having one plant is just a more efficient process.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, at least for the demonstration, because I'm going to guess that when you're putting together a new business, the word scale comes to mind.
Exactly.
And I'm guessing that in your plan, somehow, some way, their scale is factored in.
Exactly. So the goal, if you could picture it, we could put our units in the shelves. So if there's someone that already has a vertical stacked arrangement, you could place multiple units within the shelf. Our device is sized differently, so depending on the individual needs of the grower, you might need, we have a 4-foot long dimension, so a plant that would grow in 4 feet in length.
Yeah.
We have a 6-foot dimension as well, and we're also working on an 8-foot dimension for those individuals that have 8-foot long racks.
So is there an advantage to the horizontal grow indoors versus the vertical? There's definitely differentiators besides the fact that one is this way and that way.
Yes, definitely. So there's a huge advantage, and if you really go back to our old plant training methods, we've been training plants to grow horizontal by hand for millennia. You see people tie tomatoes, along vines. You see wine grapes that are tied horizontally, as well.
Right.
When you're growing indoors, you're typically working with overhead lights.
Yeah.
And the light will come down and hit the very top of the plant. And the further down you go through the plant, the less light the plant receives. So the goal is to try to take as much of that vegetative, biomass and spread it out so that the light gets to hit.
So it's evenly lit? Is that what we're looking for here, or
you're looking for your canopy, your plant top, to be evenly lit. But the difference between what we currently do now with vertical, allowing the plant to grow vertically, because the lights will never be able to really penetrate all the way down to the bottom of the plant, you trim and you cut away those lower branches because they'll never receive enough light. So that's what people do now.
And they're actually an ancillary industry has emerged where there's actually equipment you can buy to trim besides human trim. Right. I'm sorry.
And there's also other, manual ways of, there's trellis netting and all types of materials that people use to help tie those plants to go, horizontally. But what we're doing is we're doing it with automation. And instead of allowing the plant just to grow up straight where only the very top of the plant gets light, we train the plant to grow sideways so that all of the branches can stretch up towards the light and they all get access to light. So every branch on your plant will receive even optimum light, whereas the current method, the branches that are lower, they don't get to receive that light.
Gotcha. Again, it's a living thing too.
Yes.
So you never, as much as you try to control the growth and know the strain and dictate, it still has a mind of its own.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. It does.
And it needs, like anything, it needs light, it needs water, it needs food.
Yes.
And now, is there any specific combination of these things? One of the things that flips me out when I talk to the chief science officers of some of these dispensaries is that they're really able to deal with the DNA of the plant and change how it grows and what it's growing and how it grows and all. I mean, you talk about science and chemistry, way over my head.
Right.
You know, I was liberal arts. I had no idea what I was spewing BS on my history exams. I mean, that's, you know, but, you know, Tufts had a lot of smart engineers. In fact, I might mention that most of the engineers I know are millionaires. Anyway, so how do you know, again, I guess when you're growing a horizontal plant, how do you get underneath the light underneath? Are you turning the plant? I mean, this is what is it like a spit? You know, no, it isn't.
No, so you know, it's called phototropism. Every plant will bend itself and reach itself so that it can get to the most light possible. So what we've done is just by laying the plant sideways, you allow all those side branches to reach toward the light on their own. But you have to get the plant to lay sideways, and that's what our device does. It automatically trains the plant to grow sideways. So if you're looking at any of the videos that we've shown, you'll see a ring with a bunch of leaves popping through. That's the top of the plant. It's what we call the apex, the top of the plant. And that's constantly that's where the growth kind of really that's where the growth is driven. That's where it kind of comes from. So we move that ring down the pathway as it continues to grow. So if the plant grows slow, the ring will move slow. If the plant grows fast, the ring will move fast. It's kind of automatically sensing how fast the plant is growing and adjusting accordingly.
And again, we're focused on cannabis because it's an emerging industry and everybody's learning different ways to grow it the right way, the most efficient way, the way that feeds. But this isn't just limited to cannabis. I mean, can you grow tomatoes horizontally?
You could grow tomatoes, and we've done a couple of trials, short trials with peppers and tomatoes. And tomatoes are also a really great plant for people who are just trying to learn how to grow cannabis. Sometimes they say start with a tomato because
really?
it's in the similar family of cannabis. So yeah, you can use it to grow all fruit-bearing plants, and that's our goal. One of my goals personally is to try to grow a peach tree in my basement. I had
a peach this morning.
Yeah,
I love my
Was
peaches.
It good?
Oh,
I bet it wasn't like the
if
peaches
it isn't good this time of year, it's never going to be good, right?
Yeah.
It's got to be gooey and juicy to be a good peach.
Sorry, that sounds like a good one, but it's one of those things. Is I would like to try to recreate the fruit of my youth. I say sometimes because I don't get as much fresh fruit as I used to. But that's the goal: is to actually be able to grow all fruit-bearing plants and trees in our device. But we're starting with the cannabis market. And that's more of a strategy when it comes to a return on an investment for the person that's purchasing our device.
Is there a home unit? I mean, is it small enough for a home unit, or are you still looking at a B2B as far as your customer goes?
No, we have a B2C and a B2B model. So we are trying to get it just to a residential grower as well as allowing it to be accessible to commercial growers as well. So we'll have one model that's smaller and designed for a home grow, and then we'll have our larger models that are a little bit more souped up and larger for commercial grows as well.
Can I ask, being a consumer, what the going rate may be on this particular unit?
Yeah, we're still working on that.
Okay, good.
So we're going through our pricing models right now. Yep.
I mean, it's just an obvious question I had to ask.
Yeah, everybody wants to know.
And you handled it so well too, by the way. That was great. But I want to go back to the world of cannabis just for a second.
Sure.
And as do I, since we have pro-cannabis media in our name, that there's still a stigma, and we're still moving towards what we all hope will be a new normal. People will accept it as not only a medicinal product, but also one that can be used in moderation by adults. It's something I preach all the time, in a fun capacity. When you are out there talking to people, and you tell them that you're in the cannabis space, what's their reaction?
Oh, yeah, it varies. It varies. But I'm finding, recently, it's with the CBD. Everyone now knows more about cannabis, and they understand that there's something to it because of this whole CBD craze. They don't quite understand what CBD is,
and they certainly don't want to pronounce cannabidiol. Cannabidiol. Right? CBD is a lot easier. By the way, try to pronounce the THC thing. Forget it. I'm not doing a tetrahydro whatever.
I don't do it either.
By the way, who are the scientists that are going through the plant, picking out these chemicals and molecules one by one, doing the research? I know Israel actually is leading the world into this.
Yes, they are.
And I can imagine that, because whatever.
Yeah.
But who comes up with the names? I mean, it just they're not going to be called Charlie. I know that. Charlie the molecule, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't get you high, but man, it'll cure your, rheumatoid arthritis or whatever. So,
right.
Anyway,
but
back to CBD.
I think due to the CBD craze, cannabis is getting the word cannabis is spreading more, and people are starting to kind of ease up on it a little bit. However, when it comes to the THC aspect of it, I think there's still a lot of negative stigma, and the war on drugs. And failed
miserably,
and actually impacted negatively millions of people. And each if you weren't affected by it, the person to your left probably was in some capacity. There's a lot of work that needs to be done, I think, to remove all of that negative stigma and to re-educate the public on the true benefits of this plant, because it's not just medical or the recreational for to relax and to enjoy and to have fun.
Yeah.
But the hemp plant on its own has so many other benefits as well, and we're just starting to allow people to grow hemp.
Right. Well, it was the Farm Bill in December. Once again, it's the greatest country in the world, free society, capitalism. We're seeing democracy. We're seeing capitalism. We're seeing everything. We're seeing the lawyers get rich is what we're really seeing, too. That being said, we all need the lawyers.
Yeah, we all have them.
But they didn't do their research. I'm talking about our legislature. When they decided to make hemp legal and offer it to the farming industry, which has been beaten up over the years here in America, and giving them an opportunity to actually grow a new crop, a new cash crop that won't get you high, okay, because it has under 0.3% THC in it. I'm not going to get into the entourage effect today, but it exists. Anyway, that being said, it's out there. And now what they're trying to do is control CBD. And you're waiting for the FDA to get around to saying, well, yeah, this isn't going to get you high, but it has some benefits. So what do we do? And can we put it in food? Can we put it in beverages? Because everybody wants to put it in it, right? And we know the power of the almighty dollar. From your perspective, it doesn't matter to you whether it's hemp or marijuana, which has the THC in it.
Right.
And by the way, I don't like using that word. People who know me know I don't like using the M word, okay? But when it comes to the differentiator for communicative reasons, so we can actually explain to people, this is the plant with the THC that gets you high. We'll call it the M word. This is the plant that's the hemp that won't get you high. They both have CBD, and deal with it.
Yep,
okay.
Right. But yeah, from our perspective, we can grow both marijuana and hemp. It doesn't really, there's no really differentiator for us. To me, it's just a cannabinoid profile.
Right.
And every strain has a different profile. It's just that some of them have been recategorized as hemp.
It's amazing when you talk to those scientists and the chemists, right? What they're doing. And, and then you go into a medicinal dispensary. I'm going out on a limb thinking you still have a medical card.
I do.
As do I.
Yep.
And I go into I have two favorite dispensaries now. I'm Revolutionary Clinics and ACS. And I look at the makeup of the strains, and this one's going to relax you, and this one's going to focus you, and this one's going to be good for your pain. I mean, it boggles the mind for an old guy like me, just because we didn't really care. As long as it got you high, we were using it back in the day in the 70s and 80s, and it was a lot milder back then than it is now.
Yeah.
Times they have changed.
They have, and it's awesome. And that's one of the reasons why I get so excited about the industry, is because there's such a variety that the plant can provide, and there's such a variety of needs out there. Every human has a different need. My needs are different than yours, and I think it's going to be really hard for Big Pharma to come up with a marijuana pill that solves everyone's problems.
Right.
They'll try, and they are.
Right. Yes, they are.
But and I think they may be able to provide it to a majority, but it's not going to solve the problem. So we need, in my opinion, a variety of people growing with different skills, different specific areas where they focus, and because there's going to be someone who needs what you have.
Yeah. And it's so funny because back in the day we used to call it homegrown, and we used to laugh. Oh, it's homegrown. It's not from another country. I'm not going to name a couple of countries. Pick a country. Hey, it could have been Hawaii too. There's a state in America, right? Last time I checked, Maui Wowie existed back in the day. I'll admit that. But where do you think it's going to go? Massachusetts, I think, is now we were the 10th. Now there's 11 legal states with Illinois voting it in. None of the other states can figure out how to vote it in because the legislature, again, clueless. Get some education, people. It's really all about education. Learn about this plan. And by the way, there's a lot to learn. And now you're starting to see it being added into Clark University is going to be offering an online course. And other schools schools are going to. And why not? Because you're talking about business. You're talking about chemistry. You're talking about botanical. You're talking about so many different elements that have depth of study already, and this is all a whole new world, right?
It is. There's so much opportunity out there. And when I first started getting excited about the industry, which was probably around 2013 or 14, I was in, I guess, this Netflix, loop where I watched one weed documentary, and then they kept throwing more at me, and I got to learn more and more about it. And then I said, all right, let's read some books and actually do some real studying about it. But one of the things I thought was, I want to be involved in this industry in some capacity, but I'm an engineer. I'm not a farmer. I'm not I don't wake up in the morning and think about growing. I wake up in the morning and I think about innovative new ways and problems to solve. That's what I should be doing. So I say that to say, for anyone who's listening, use your strength and bring it to the industry if you're looking to get involved. It's not always just about growing. There's so much other work that needs to be done.
Oh, like starting a talk show and a podcast and giving the voice to the industry, perhaps? Something like that? That might be something I've heard about, too, a little bit, let's just say. Let's talk about women just for a second, because I am I am a male who embraces the fact that I am not the number one species. I understand that there's always great women behind good men. And I think for years, women, as you know, have been vilified and been abused. And, I go back in history and just realize the fact that, my God, they only got the vote in the 20th century? Really? I mean, now we're in the 21st century. I think we've moved beyond that. Someday we may actually have a female leading the free world. Certainly would be an improvement of what we have now, but let's leave that politics out for a second, even though I do like to throw those in once in a while. It's just who I am.
Just to let people know.
That's right. Just make sure you know I lean as far left as you possibly can get, okay? Anyway, but in the cannabis industry, insightful women see exactly what you see. Whoa, there's an opportunity here. And in business, right? Because for years, the good old boys club would kind of not want women in there. They felt threatened by women or whatever they were because they were weak, really. That being said, women are starting to really take hold of this industry. I got to meet Ashley Pacillo at the Seed to Sale show in February that the NCIA ran here in Boston. And she has this book out called Breaking the Glass Ceiling, and it's profiles of women entrepreneurs.
Awesome.
And if you haven't heard of it, I do sell that book on the side. No, I don't. You can go to Amazon. Ashley and I got to know each other, literally just like this, talking to each other, and I was so impressed with her.
Awesome.
She's a consultant out of Colorado, and has done very well. But why? Why am I seeing so many women getting into the business?
Well, women are leaders.
Yep. Oh God, yes. So, do you know who David Ferrity is by any chance? He's a golf analyst.
Okay.
Yeah. And he's from. He's got a great accent. I can't figure out which whether it's British or South African or Australian. It doesn't really matter. Okay. Somewhere in the British Empire. Yeah. And he calls his significant other "she who must be obeyed." And I do use that because I am in a relationship where she must be obeyed, and I obey. Yeah. And and men pretty much understand this. Yeah. That being said, why do we even have to have a Me Too movement? In other words, it's come to the point now where it's critical. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And I think everybody recognizes that. You know what? Women can be pretty smart. Wow, women can be pretty insightful. Wow, women can be pretty shrewd when it comes to negotiation and business. Finally getting the respect the species and the gender deserves. Yeah, yeah.
And we've, because it's an open area, and
it's opportunity.
There's opportunity. So women lead, and they'll make the first move. and if you see to lead, usually you see opportunity, you see vision, so you make that first move, and then other people will start to see what you're doing, and they go, oh, okay, and then they move with you. And I think if you look at a lot of there's lots of past examples of that type of stuff happening, especially when it comes to civil rights movements and things like that. But where I'm trying to go with this is women are definitely have an opportunity to participate in the industry, and I see a lot of my my peers and a lot of my friends that are women that are doing great things. But I think we also have to be mindful to make sure that we keep that space, because past history has shown that when women move into something new and the crowd follows, they start to get pushed out.
Right.
So we need to make sure that we maintain space for women, minorities, and everyone, to everybody. There's plenty of opportunity for everyone. There's no need to, I think, hoard and push people out.
Exactly. And we both have talked a little bit about Big Pharma, because we know we're playing with a medicine. And when Big Pharma comes in, there aren't, you tell me, I'm naive on this one, guys. I'll admit this. How many women are in Big Pharma right now? Are there any women CEOs running the bigger pharmaceutical companies that are out there in this country, where we see every other ad on television?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm sure there are some women leaders in pharma. I can think of one example. I can't remember the woman's name, but
Google knows, so
we'll be able to Google later. I don't.
It's an unknown, isn't it?
It's an unknown.
And that tells you two things. One is it's such a big industry that, and they don't showcase their leadership. They hide.
There's not a lot of face behind Big Pharma.
Exactly right. And that to me is a scary thing. Whereas in this particular case, people are coming out and they're putting their faces out there. They're saying, you know what, my sportscaster career is over. I got no problem. I am a talk show host at this point. I can deal with it. That's where we're at this point. And you have to put your face out there. You have put your face out there on your crowdfunding. Let's talk a little bit about that. Because we want to know where we can invest with your company. If people want to, you've opened it up to the public and allowed them to get a piece of this action, right?
Yeah. So that was one of the things that both Dre and I thought was really important, that we tried to figure out a way to allow the community to participate in our success. And we started with crowdfunding, product focused crowdfunding. So that was, we were selling T-shirts and and discounts and things, future discounts on Indiegogo. So we did that first. We raised a little bit of money through Indiegogo crowdfunding.
Okay, that's what I was gonna say. How did you pick the one you're involved with? Which one now?
Now we're doing regulation crowdfunding with Start Engine. StartEngine.com.
Now, what's the difference between regulation crowdfunding and
Sure, I'd love to talk about that.
Yeah, let's,
because a lot of regulation crowdfunding is
in fact,
new.
Enlighten me a little bit, because I got to tell you, we are thinking about doing crowdfunding.
And a lot of media companies use crowdfunding to raise money. A lot of, especially on a project by project basis.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah,
okay.
but there's lots of different types of crowdfunding. There's product, where you actually give away a product to receive money. There's service, where you might give some sort of information or educational service for money. And then there's regulation crowdfunding, which is investment. You give away ownership in your company or some sort of financial package that is tied to the success of the company financially. That's the third type of crowdfunding, and it's the newest, regulation crowdfunding. It was part of the Jobs Act from 2012 that President Obama signed, but they put a 4-year hold on it. They gave the industry 4 years to figure out how they wanted to actually regulate it. Yeah. And then in 2016, they flipped the switch and said, okay, you can now do crowdfunding that involves investment. And what that means is anybody in the public can invest in a company. Prior to 2016, you had to be an accredited investor.
Right.
So which means you had to be
familiar with that.
Yeah.
At least you can write a check for $250,000,
right?
And it won't bounce.
Right. Yeah,
because I can write a check for $250,000.
Right.
It's
like
my autograph. It's not even worth anything on a check. Why would you want it? Yeah.
Right. So you had to be high net worth individual in order to invest, which is actually pretty sucky for the people that are interested in investing, have some money, but they just don't meet that criteria, so they're not able to invest in order to move themselves from where they are to where they want to be. So the 2016 introduction of regulation crowdfunding said you don't have to be an accredited investor. You do have to make sure that you have enough money so that you're not making yourself broke. So I think there's a criteria that you can't invest more than 10% of your income.
Okay. Yep.
But you can invest.
Yep. Okay.
So
and as little, I think I saw as little as $200. Did I see that?
Yeah,
the minimum investment.
Any company can set the minimum. I think the lowest on Start Engine, and I don't. So one of the things about regulation crowdfunding is it's regulated by the SEC.
Yeah, I've heard of them.
The Securities and Exchange Commission.
Yes, I'm very familiar with.
IRS, SEC. Those three acronyms.
I prefer
serious.
THC and CBD, but that's another story.
Yeah,
right?
those three acronyms aren't fun acronyms.
Okay. So, I got you.
But yeah, the SEC regulates the whole overall process, so they have some rules and regulations in regards to what you can say publicly about your raise in the terms that you can put out there.
Right.
But you can set low minimums, and I believe, I don't know if this is SEC or Start Engine, but you can go as low as $100.
Yep. Yeah. And then you say, okay, I'm going to give 10% of the equity in my company to this fundraise, or they're non-voting shares, I'm guessing, right? You don't want to have to deal with thousands of people on your board, right?
Usually they're non-voting shares. I can't think of any examples, because when I started to get into this process to use it for our company, we researched a lot of existing companies that were doing it, and the majority of them are doing equity, a 10 or 20% equity,
right.
non-voting, no voting rights.
Right.
However, you get in early, and you get a chance anyone gets a chance to participate. So yeah, that's what we wanted to do.
Yeah, we are looking at that. I'm not kidding. That is absolutely something we've talked about. In fact, when I recruited my oldest friend out of retirement and said, please help me run my company so I don't screw it up.
Yeah.
The first words out of his mouth were, I'm thinking we should do crowdfunding on this.
Yeah.
And for a number of reasons. One is the name itself. We talk about, we're professionals talking about cannabis in the media, as opposed to, we're professional cannabis users. We are a B2B focused. We want people like yourself to have an opportunity to come into a studio and talk about your business and who you are and why it's so important to do what you're doing. It's truly an incredible time to watch all this happen. We're in Massachusetts, right? This is my home state. Yeah. It is the greatest sports town in America, by the way. Boston. Sorry, Philly.
That's all right.
You got one. You know what I mean? You got one. Yeah. You got one. Okay? And just keep in mind that your Eagles football team is owned by Jeff Lurie from Newton, Massachusetts, my hometown.
All right.
I'm just saying my hometown. Okay. In Massachusetts. Did I say it enough? All right. So, but I do feel like we're part of a historic movement here. I really do. I mean, every day there's another story, another study is coming out. I'm going to self-promote here a little bit. Yeah. That's difficult for me. But Thursday night, July 11th, again, we record this conversation and we distribute it over the next few weeks. But we are doing a live show. No one's going to know this by the time they hear this interview, but we will have done a live show on July 11th. And the interactive element of live media is something that I cherish. It's something that I've been involved with live television since I was 20 years old. I started my first company in 2008 when the entire world's economy decided to get cut in half because it wasn't enough of a challenge to start your first company. In a good economy, I had to wait for everybody to lose half their money. Anyway, that was Young Broadcasters of America. Very happy I did it. But the point about it is that, when you're building a business, sometimes you don't have a chance to pick when. You were able to pick when. You were able to get in at the infancy of $1 billion, trust me, $1 trillion industry, because it's not going to just stop growing. It's going to be every country is going to get involved with this at some point because they recognize it's a live thing. It's a commodity, right? And eventually it's going to be traded as a commodity.
Right.
You mentioned the SEC. I know the Commodity Futures Trade Commission is out there licking their lips about this because they know that this is an emerging agricultural product that's going to happen. Does that drive you? Does the fact that you're part of this and it has to drive you, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. it's the unknown. I mean, when I'm, I love.
It's scary. Too,
it is scary, yes. But that scariness is also, you know, thrilling. Right. For some people. For some people.
Exactly right. It's like bungee jumpers.
Yeah.
You know, they know they're attached, but they're still going to jump off that thing and have to think, maybe it will snap. Maybe this will be the one time right?
Maybe. I mean, but you know, everything that we do is always it's a path. It's the process. So whatever happens with Trella, and there's so many possibilities and so much that we want to do with it. I don't think it's going to be a failure. Right. There's going to be some success out of this.
Right. Because it works.
Right. It works. I can visualize it. I can see it in my head. And I know that it's got a lot of capacity to do really great things for people. And I think it's just a matter of time. You have to get the word out, let people know what we're doing. Right. But yeah, it does fuel me to know that this is a new industry. There's no rules. Right.
Well, the rules are, well, whoa. Well, hang on a second.
There are no rules.
A ton of rules.
There's no rules to how you dictate your success in this.
It's giving you some parameters and regulations that you have to work within. And you are touching the product, or at least your grow system touches the product.
My grow system touches the product, so it removes us. We do have one level of removal from all of the other rules that people have to deal with.
Right, and that's important to note too. How can people find out about where they can donate or find out more? You know, give your website a plug here.
Yeah, I'd love to. So our website is Trella, Trella.io. Trella.io. We're on all the the typical social media platforms.
Can I ask why .io?
Internet of Things. So the other benefit that that our device does is it automatically will train a plant to grow sideways, but it's also doing that based on how fast the plant grows, which means that we are tracking the rate of growth. So what we've done is we've included temperature sensors, humidity sensors, and CO2 sensors that are also finding that information and tracking how fast does the plant grow, depending on temperature, depending on humidity, depending on CO2. And what you can do is you can learn from that past data and optimize your next grow cycle so that you have a quicker grow. I mean, the thing about commercial growing is that it's all about yield, quality, and also speed.
Right, you got to turn it.
Yeah, you got to turn it over. So for us, and for our commercial users, one of the benefits is that our device uses low stress training, that LST, and our product name, Trella Grow, LST. The LST stands for low stress training. And low stress means you're not cutting, you're not pruning, you're not overly manipulating it, because when you do that, you slow down how fast the plant grows. So what we're doing is we're removing all of that physical manipulation, being very gentle, and allowing the plant to grow naturally, which means it'll grow faster. So there's also the benefit from a commercial perspective of having a faster harvest as well.
Yeah, no, that's one of the things. I know that the Cannabis Control Commission in Massachusetts wanted to make sure that the medicinal patient had a supply of at least 35% for each dispensary. So it's protected. The medicine side of things is protected. It still leaves 65%, by the way, for fun and games.
Yes.
Yeah, and interestingly, if you look at what's going on in the industry now with some of the outside bigger companies coming into Massachusetts and setting up shop here and controlling the verticals and what have you. That's just capitalism at work, in my opinion. And I don't want to shut out any of the social equity applicants or any of the little small businesses, the mom and pop growers out there. It really is designed to be a people's business when you get right down to it. And the laws allow you to grow 12 plants in your dwelling if you have 2 adults in your dwelling. Can I ask a question about odor?
Sure.
Okay.
My odor?
No, not your odor. The pungent odor of the cannabis plant.
Yeah.
When I visit my dispensaries that have a grow facility underneath, this is the one in Bridgewater.
Right.
As soon as you get out of the car, you smell it. Right? Yeah. You walk into the dispensary, you smell it more. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And what happened? Is there a way to control that with your system indoors, or is it just shut the door and put little, little air fresheners hanging out.
Yeah, no, our system doesn't get into helping with
the
odor
odor.
control.
You're on your own with the odor.
Yeah.
It's a pungent.
Yeah.
It's a pungent live thing.
And there are filters out there that you could put on your ventilation system to help reduce the odor.
Yeah.
But it has to be designed efficiently, and if it's not, you're still going to get some of the odor anyway. So that's usually what the issue is that it's just it's just not designed efficiently to really mask it well enough.
Yeah. And you know what? Odor is objective. No, subjective. Subjective. Excuse me. Odor is subjective.
Right.
You probably may or may not like the odor. Some do. Some don't.
Right.
That's subjective.
Yeah.
I know. It's all right. Look, I'm not 100% today, guys.
But to answer your .io, the sensors and how we're tracking growth, we're getting that data, so it's machine learning.
Is it artificial intelligence?
Artificial intelligence.
Wow.
Yeah, so machine learning is kind of a subset of artificial intelligence, but so that's the reason why we decided to go with .io. You can also find us at TrellaTechnologies.com.
There you go. I knew there was a .com in there because I Googled it and I found it earlier when I was doing my homework.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Oh, but to also just make sure that everyone understands how to invest. If you go to our website, you can click the invest button. That will take you straight to our Start Engine page. Or you can go to startengine.com and just search Trella, and you'll find us that way too. And
Start Engine provides all that. That's their model, is to get a lot of these companies to use their product.
Right.
They're
like the Indiegogo or the Kickstarter of regulation crowdfunding.
Regulation crowdfunding. That's great. I mean, again, this is not my thing. I try. Great piece of advice. Do what you do best.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I think I read you say that at some point in one of your interviews, by the way. And I'm reading that and I'm going, yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. Do what I do best is try to be someone who's easy to talk to.
Yeah.
And ask some good questions once in a while.
Right.
And can be somewhat entertaining at some point.
Of course.
Somewhere.
Oh, yeah. But that goes back to the sports thing and team.
Yes, it does.
You know,
That's
when you're
right.
on a team, everybody's good at something.
That's right.
Stay in your lane.
That's right. And a coach puts you in position to succeed.
Yep.
Because I've got 35 years of soccer coaching in my background too, and it's something I haven't done in about 10 years, and I miss it.
Yep.
But we should let's take a minute. Let's congratulate the U.S. women's national soccer team for winning the World Cup.
That was an
dominating.
awesome game.
I love it. You know, it's not. Somebody had told me this, and I'm going to throw this by you, and I know you're going to get this. The United States has the best team sports of anybody in the world. They are the best softball players. They are the best. They compete at the highest level in ice hockey. Canadians right up there with us. Okay, I'm going to give it equal time. All right. Soccer, basketball. This is all a direct result of Title IX in the 70s. Which happened when I was in college at Tufts University, and I did my little senior paper, thesis, whatever, on how they weren't complying with federal guidelines for Title IX at Tufts University. Needless to say, the athletic department didn't like me too much, although they understood what I was doing and respected it. And now they have great athletics for women.
Right.
That's what we're seeing now.
Yeah.
We're seeing that second and third generation of the woman athlete.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I'm guessing as
You've got
a woman
mothers
athlete,
coaching their daughters now.
mothers coaching their daughters.
Yeah.
And it's just it was just great to see. They did dominate. I know they took a lot of heat for crushing Thailand 13-0 or whatever it was in the first game. And you know what, guys? You're playing on the world stage. Your adrenaline is going. You're not thinking. You're not stopping. You're celebrating. You're just not.
Yeah.
You know, and granted, look, when I was a coach, if we got up by 5 or 6 goals, we played the ball backwards. We moved to the corners. There are ways to control the game without moving towards the net. But you know what? They're professionals.
Yeah, professionals don't do that. They can't let
Ask
up.
Bill Belichick about running up the score, right?
Yeah,
okay, I mean, come on, stop me, right?
Yeah.
And learn what you have to do
Right.
to stop me, because sports is really a learning experience,
Right.
and that's really what it's about.
Right.
That's why, when my teams lost, I was like, well, we learned a lot more today than the other team. That's how do you spin it. You got to spin it that way, because otherwise, winning at all costs is not the deal anymore.
Right.
In fact, I'm big on redefining the word success, because you can be an 0-12 team and still be
A success. Yeah.
Anyway, that's my spiel. I'm getting to the point now where I can feel myself running out of gas. Aja, is there any other plugs you need for your company right now that you need to throw out there? Are you taking advantage of any of these conventions and trade shows or anything?
Oh, no. So what we're trying to do right now is we have our Facebook group. It's the Growers Club. And that will be, if you're interested in finding out when will the units be available, how much will the units cost, the best thing you could do is to go on Facebook, follow us at Trella.innovation, and join the Growers Club. You can also do that by going to our website, Trella.io. But if you join the Growers Club, it's free. It's just a Facebook community group. I'm in there. I'm showing some more of the behind-the-scenes stuff that people you might not see unless they're within the group. And that's going to be the first place where we talk about the price and when the units will be available. So if you're interested from a buying perspective or just want to see what we're up to, please follow us. We're excited to see where this is going to go.
And you know what? If you want to invest, take a flyer. It's $200. I have learned that you only invest what you can afford to lose.
Right. Especially
when you're not an accredited investor. Who can lose $250,000. Anyway, completely different world out there, right? Aja Nicole Atwood from Trella Technologies, thank you so much for taking the time to come in and meet me and say hello. And I've enjoyed this. I expect we'll become great friends. I'm going to like you on Facebook and share and follow and all that social
media
that we have
crap.
To do, whatever it is. I get it. It's important. We're using it now.
Yes,
please,
we get it.
Please like Pro Cannabis Media. Do you like our new mic flags? We're doing a lot of new things, and there's a lot of exciting things here. And more importantly, I just want to give the industry equal time. Yeah. Because the traditional media group that's out there now is looking for the industry to screw up so they can have something to lead their news with. Okay? And it's unfair. Yeah. Because no one is telling the stories of the people in the cannabis industry, and that's exactly what we want to do.
And thank you for documenting the history.
It's what I do. I'm a storyteller and a history major. I mean, it fits, doesn't it?
Awesome.
Absolutely. The sports thing was my career for a long time, and I still can talk sports with the best of them or the worst of them. Anyway, that's my story. So again, thank you. Yep. Joyce Gerber is the executive producer of this. I want to thank her for finding you.
Yes, thank you, Joyce.
That's right. Thank you, Joyce. Steve Helmuth is the technical director of this. He does a great job of making sure that this all sounds good, looks good.
Thank you, Steve.
And we can use it again and again and again, which is really, 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 really important. So for everybody here at Pro Cannabis Media, I appreciate you taking the time, bringing us into your world, whatever that is. And remember, it's a whole new world of weed out there. Use it responsibly. And now, for those of you who are actually watching this on video, you get to check out our new sizzle reel edited by Tony Simonetti. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Revolutionary Clinics is just one of 49 medical cannabis dispensaries in Massachusetts, but there's a reason why it's one of the most popular. It's their patient-first philosophy. All day long, they teach, they educate, they communicate about this complicated plant called cannabis sativa. That's true whether you visit their Cambridge location in Fresh Pond at 110 Fawcett Street or at 67 Broadway in Somerville. Revolutionary Clinics, where the patient comes first. In the Weeds with Jimmy Young is a video podcast produced by the Pro Cannabis Media Network for the entertainment and education of our audience. All opinions on this show should not be considered medical advice or reflect the opinions of the management of CLNS Media, C-Suite Network, Pro Cannabis Media Group, or its marketing partners.